Dear listeners of the Female Guides Requested podcast, happy Wednesday. This is your host Ting Ting from Las Vegas. Today our guest is Ann Julz. She was highly recommended by a listener and fellow guide Ian. I was so glad to connect with her and had a wonderful conversation with her. Ann also goes with Julz, is a backcountry mentor, ski guide, and avalanche educator living in Bellingham, Washington. 2 winters ago, she launched Grounding Truth Holistic Guiding, a process-oriented, women-focused, grassroots ski guiding business. As a guide, Julz embodies an attitude of curiosity, wonder, and reverence in wild places. She is dedicated to creating inclusive spaces within outdoor adventures that evoke feelings of radical acceptance and help cultivate more deeply felt experiences. Ann is truly special. Her love towards snow country and skiing is contagious, and her dedication to grounding truth is admirable. I don't consider myself that much of a winter person, but I was curious about why she loved it so much. So I asked her to describe winter for me. I was speechless, and when I listened to her words again, I couldn't help but close my eyes in order to feel the intense beauty. I typically listen to podcasts when I'm driving. If you are like me, please don't close your eyes when you listen to this episode. I'm so glad to connect with you.
Yeah, me too.
It's new for me. I had to do a little research because I don't know you, and then you're doing mostly winter skiing, avalanche education stuff. Is that right? Yeah, and
Yep.
it's something that I'm also not very familiar with because I'm a rock guide.
hmm
Yeah, so I got a lot of questions for you.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, so you right now at Bellingham, Washington?
Yep, in Bellingham.
Nice. I'm curious. I read your website and your profile, so I'm gonna ask. So you fell in love with skiing, and then you mentioned
hmm
that it was kind of interesting because you grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I guess for people in United States, that must be a very big contrast. But I'm from another country originally, so I would love that. Can you describe a little bit about why is that huge difference between the impression of skiing and then the Georgia?
Yeah, the growing up in Atlanta, I wasn't exposed to cold weather really or much snow. I guess the occasional sled day, which was pretty fun, but I I didn't really get to learn how to ski very well until my adult life. I got some opportunities as a kid to go skiing with my family, maybe 4 days a year, if every year. I think we skipped a few years. So I had a memory of the love of skiing, but I didn't really know how to ski. And I guess the difference, it feels huge. I think it feels like I don't know if I could live in Georgia again because there's no skiing. I think I really value having that mode of recreation nearby to where I live. And when I lived in Georgia, I was more of a rock climber, so I didn't mind so much then because there's good rock climbing around. But I think now having skiing and that being really like taken over from what was once like a very fiery passion for rock climbing, I feel like now skiing is a little bit more. Um, and yeah, just being close to it feels important to me right now.
Nice. Um, when I came to the States, I was in East Coast and I learned a little bit skiing. I live in Philadelphia, so I went to the Poconos. And I found that, skiing is a sport that's easy to learn, but it's very hard to master. Would you think that way? Or I don't know.
I'm still learning. I'm definitely still learning. Um, and I do think it is, although I think it's hard to learn as an adult, because it hurts to fall. I
Okay.
think it hurts more to fall as an adult, and so your risk tolerance for trying new things, is maybe less than as a kid. But I do think that if you come from a background in rollerblading or skateboarding, even, or something that's similar, or maybe for me, it was a combination of rollerblading and having a memory of enjoying the sensation of sliding on snow, that maybe that can allow you to push past that fear and kind of allow yourself to control your fall, which is you're essentially falling down a mountain with boards under your feet. You're just controlling the slide. And so I guess there's an element of letting go in that. And so I think, yeah, there's some elements of letting yourself, um, be in that space and be willing to take that risk as an adult. Whereas I think kids can just fall and they're like rubber. They just pop right back up.
I guess for any movement related sport or maybe speed wise, that it's always much easier to learn when you were a kid. Like I always say, I
Hmm.
also learned rock climbing as an adult. I just like, oh yeah, I wish I could start earlier. But then I also
Hmm.
talk with other ski guys. Uh, they say, well, they start skiing when they were a kid, and it's a little bit harder for them to explain or teach people when people learn skiing as an adult because they didn't have the
Hmm.
process.
Right. The memory of learning to ski and all that went into that. And I'll say too, a bit of my background. I started learning how to ski as an adult as a ski instructor.
Oh, so you
So
jump right in as like a ski instructor?
I did. Yeah, I didn't really know how to ski, but they told me that was okay, that they would teach me how to ski and that I would be teaching kids how to put on their skis and learn how to stop first so that, they're like, we can get you to that point pretty easily. And then as you progress, you can progress in what kind of lessons you teach. So I was able to learn all of these fundamental skills, I guess. And another thing I think to answer more further the last question of easy to learn, hard to master is that if you learned how to ski as an adult, um, then if you have all of these tools at your fingertips of learning the proper form, then maybe it's a little bit easier to master because you're learning good technique right away. Whereas I think some of the other people I worked with had been skiing all their life and had a way that they skied and had to break bad habits to find the right form through the PSIA instruction. So maybe there is some benefit to having that as an adult and learning, when you have all those resources.
I mean, that's actually a very good point of view. Then at least give people hope that because in rock climbing, everybody was like, "Oh, I wish I start earlier," but then it's like never too late, and then you can have whatever benefit at that um, age.
Hmm.
Yeah. So tell me about so on your website you said that you have been guiding for probably more than a decade. Is that right?
It's about a decade.
It's
I
about a
think I'm at
decade.
nine years now.
Okay. So how did you started like guiding?
I was a rock guide. I guess not a really good rock guide. I took people top roping.
So I
Um,
mean, when you were
and
back in Georgia, is that right?
I was in Georgia and I started working at a climbing gym. That's kind of how I started all of this, was teaching belay classes and lead climbing classes. And then in college, I worked for the outdoor program and was taking students rock climbing, top roping, and rappelling in Linville Gorge out in North Carolina. And then I guess when I was in college, I wanted to get like a real guiding job that wasn't just through the university or a climbing gym. And so I went up to Southeast Alaska and worked for a company that ran programs for cruise ship passengers. So we would pick people up off the cruise ship and take them to a top roping site, and we'd top rope with them for a few hours. And we did a belay rappel, which was a cool skill to develop there. And then we drop them back off, and we do that maybe 3 or 4 times a day. So we'd have, 4 busloads of people. And it was also attached to a zip lining site. So you did some rock and some zip lining. And that was how I kind of got started, was doing that and realizing that I really enjoyed being outside and working with people and helping them overcome their fears.
And then when did you transition into skiing?
It was actually at that job in Alaska that I met some people who wintered in Montana. And so they were in the summer in Alaska, winter in Montana, and they were telling me I should apply to work at Big Sky in Montana. And they had some connections and said they could get me a job there. And I told them I didn't know how to ski, and they said, it doesn't matter. You'll be great. So I think they gave me the encouragement to first apply, and then it went so well. I got the job and decided to take a semester off of school to go to Montana and be a ski instructor. And that's how I fell in love with skiing.
Nice. So how many seasons did you spend in Montana?
I was there for 2 seasons as a ski instructor and 2 seasons as a patroller.
I see.
Um, yeah,
So in order
so
to
four
get you,
winters.
yeah, and in order to get you up to speed to like teach skiing, what did they do?
Um, to to learn how to ski there, I feel
And
like
then yes,
the I learned really quickly. I
nice.
think
I
I
mean,
skied.
you were probably like you were athletic and you were young, so I think that those are advantage for learning a new
I
sport.
felt like I had the advantage with having a free pass, with having access to training through the instructors that were in the ski school. And Big Sky is a pretty amazing mountain and all of the terrain that's available to you. So I had a lot to progress to. Some of those ski lines are pretty big mountain style. And of course, you look at them the whole time while you're skiing the groomers. So I just, being a mountain person, it was very attractive to want to work up to that. And I was the person in my friend group. I feel like I was so excited about skiing that when they wanted to take a break for lunch, I was like, why would you do that? We can ski 3 more runs. Like, I'm gonna eat this frozen bar and keep skiing. So I think I just got as much skiing as I could get in those first few years, and that really helped me a lot.
And then back then when you worked there, it was mostly on the groom trail. Was that right? Yeah.
There's a lot of groomed trails. There's also a lot of off-piste kind of moguls mostly. And then Big Sky also has some pretty big runs off of the summit that are exposed to lots of wind and weather. So you do get a little bit of a backcountry feel
Yeah, because like
coming off of the peak.
right. So now most of your work is that more like backcountry skiing, right? Is it?
Yeah, I think backcountry skiing, the snowpack is so variable, and the biggest difference is you don't have skier compaction from what you would have in a resort. So you end up getting layers that maybe you punch through that are less common in a resort area. I know for me, my kryptonite coming from Big Sky was like, I don't know how to ski breakable crust because I didn't have breakable crust, and that's been something I've continually been learning how to ski better and better over the last couple years. But I would say those types of things you don't get as much in a resort setting.
Then how did you learn how to ski in backcountry?
I guess by trial and error,
Trial and error.
having trial and error, yeah.
And
And
so you just went out there and did it.
I just went out there and did it. And I don't think it always looked so graceful, and that's okay. That's all
Nice.
part of the learning. Yeah.
Right. And then so compare, well, I should not say it. Okay, compare resort skiing and backcountry skiing. Like, do,
Well,
do you
in resorts,
yes, go ahead.
I think they both serve their place. I definitely favor backcountry skiing right now in this chapter because I really love the quiet and walking uphill and walking to a really good run or two or five. But in a resort, you get this opportunity of getting to ski so many runs in a day
Right, because they
that
take you up, right?
they take you up. Yeah, and these lifts are really fast, a lot of them nowadays. So you could be from the bottom to the top of the mountain in 3 to 5 minutes, which you can't do when you're skinning, really. So you just get so much more repetition. And so um, I think in a resort, you have the ability to really work on your skiing a lot more and focus on how you're skiing and getting exposure to a lot of different pieces of terrain. Whereas backcountry skiing, it's sort of this whole encompassing experience that is involving walking uphill and having all of your layers so that you can manage that output on the up and how cold you might get on the down. And you also have a lot more to think about, which is kind of what I teach most of the winter is all of this kind of avalanche awareness and how do we make decisions. And that also takes time and effort. Whereas in a resort, the ski patrol is going to manage all of those slopes so you don't have to think about it so much.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can find things relating climbing, right? Gym climbing, uh, sport climbing, and then track climbing, and all that. So, like different layers of your outsource part of the risk management to some other people, but then gradually you get more independence.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And like you're not worried about rock fall in a gym. you know?
Well, hopefully, yeah, definitely if you they lock their violence well, then maybe we won't have to worry about that. Yeah.
hmm
So, and then so after Montana was then moving to Bellingham then
I actually was summering in Bellingham and
summering. So what
wintering in
did you?
Montana.
So summering. So what did you do in Bellingham summering?
I started working for a guide company on Mount Rainier my first summer in Bellingham. I guess I was actually in um, Ashford, Washington, and climbing Rainier a bunch. And then I learned of another guiding company in Bellingham that was hiring and doing some more education style trips. And that was really attractive to me. So I ended up applying for that job and getting that job and coming back to Bellingham the next summer and just working in the Cascades, teaching people mountaineering skills and leadership and a lot of glacier navigation and some traditional rock climbing techniques. But these were like 12-day programs. And so getting to work with students and watch them grow, and it was a really good opportunity for me. And I stuck around there for about 5 years doing that every summer.
And so at this point of your life, do you still do that, or you basically guide in Bellingham, near Bellingham area?
It's a great question. Recent years, there's been a big question for me about sustainability in this work
You mean
and
that?
sustainability
Yeah.
with my butt, mostly thinking about my body too, and just like how hard it is to guide year round on your body. And the summer work felt like it was the hardest on my body. And so I think some things just like built up to a point where I needed to decide, okay, like, am I going to keep doing this or do I need to take a step back and reconsider? And for the summer work, it felt like I needed to take a step back and reconsider what I'm doing. And for the winter work, it's just felt like keep doing this. It's so good. And it fuels my soul too. And I think that offers something to the sustainability of the work as well. It feels a little better on my body, less weight in the backpack. You're not walking downhill, which also helps. Um, but I was doing mostly mountaineering, multi-day mountaineering courses. So the heavy backpack and walking downhill slowly was kind of wearing on me. So for now, I'm not doing that work anymore. And it's an exciting moment for me to consider what I will do in the summer months. And
So
I'm
right.
still figuring that out.
So right now you focus more on the winter work, and then
Definitely.
I see, and figuring out what you're gonna do in the summer. Great.
hmm
So yeah, I think at some point, I think all the guys think about that. Just like, okay, we love to play outside, but then this is very physical demanding, and
hmm
so trying to strive for that balance and self care and everything. Um, then when did you found your business, the grounding truth?
I got the LLC in 2021,
So it's
and
right
my
after
first,
pandemic.
yeah, it was. I'm not sure it's totally related, probably a little bit, but the name actually came to me on a trip I had guided, where I was thinking a lot about how important it is to ground truth, your your plan and how you move in the mountains, that you can have all these expectations of how it's going to go just looking at a map and planning it out. But until you're actually there and know where the snow line is and where there's water running, or if there's a cliff that kind of just missed the map a little bit, you're like, wait a second, the ground truth is that we can't go this way. And there's a lot of that coming up on a particular trip. And leaving the field, I had about 18 miles of walking to think about all of that had just happened. And this term ground truthing kept coming up to me. And for a while, I'd been thinking that eventually I'd want to start my own guiding company. And so grounding truth is the active version of ground truthing something. So actively grounding truth. And so I got the LLC not knowing what I would do with it. And over the next year, it became really clear that I would offer mentorship, season-long Avalanche mentorship. And so last winter was the first winter that I offered that.
Yeah, so I look at your websites, it's very interesting, and I probably need you to elaborate that idea a little bit further. Like ground truth, like for example, you say during that trip you start thinking about that. So what was that light bulb moment for you?
Well, let's see. I think really it was this moment of working with another guide where they wanted to go a certain way to get out of this mountain range. And I was like, I don't know if that goes. It looks really steep. I think there's a cliff down there. And they're like, no, no, trust me, it'll be fine. And then all of a sudden, we're in for steep terrain. It's getting late. It's probably 8 p.m., but it's in the summer. So we still have light for another 2 hours. But we're not in a really good spot. And I'm looking down below us, and there's a huge crevasse, and it just looks like complex terrain. But I can see where we're trying to go, but there's a lot in the way of us getting there. And I think this other guide was really trusting the map. And I'm like, use your eyes, like, look at this situation. Like, we cannot keep going. And eventually they saw what I was seeing and decided that it wasn't going to work. And so we got out of there. And then there was a moment where I took over the reins of navigating and was able to show the students that we were with a photo of the slope we were on from across the valley that I had taken earlier that day. And based on the map, it looked like we should go a certain way, but based on that photo, you could tell that there was a connecting snow patch that would take us where we were trying to go. And we followed that snow patch, and we were on trail within an hour once setting out. And this was sort of this really clear moment to me of trusting the ground truth, like what's actually here to work with, and kind of looking up from our phones and the blue dot on the GPS and just actually seeing what we have to work with and how effective that is. And granted, it's, you know, not the solve all in every moment. The tools we have on our phones are really powerful, but to really take into account actually what we see before our eyes and what the ground truth is of a situation. And to elaborate a little bit more but not give too much away, is that on that long walk I could feel into all the layers that speaks to. Like, it not only speaks to the landscape and how one navigates, but I think oftentimes we set expectations for ourselves of how we're going to show up on a given day to an objective. But then what is the ground truth of where we actually are in that moment and what do we need to perform or what do we need to give ourselves to really be the best we can be in that given moment on that day.
I think that's a very big concept. I can kind of relate it with my own experience of, well, sometimes I navigate through like new terrain, right? And then nowadays we have a powerful tool like the GPS, the map, but still that I was aware that, the contour lines say every, I don't know, 100 meter, but there will be some cliff that micro feature or terrain is not gonna be shown on the mountain.
Mhm.
So then you kind of have to be there, and also it's very condition dependent. So you have to be there to incorporate those information with whatever you can with, and then make your decision. Then,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. And as
right,
guys, I think we deal with this a lot because, as
mm-hmm.
you probably know too, like if you're terrain belaying somebody, you have to look around. You have to read the terrain that you're in, and there's no map to tell you, oh, you're gonna have a sweet horn right here, and
Right.
you're gonna be able to get a good stance. It's like you have to look around and see what you have to work with. And I
I
think
guess,
just
yeah.
trying
Mm-hmm.
to bring everyone into that mindset of taking in their surroundings.
And I understand that because in guiding world we talk about say mountain sense, and so you you develop the sense by expose yourself more in the backcountry or in the wilderness. Something I think realistically you probably can learn from just studying stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where this idea for the programs I'm running came in, is from teaching a bunch of Avalanche courses and having students come into level twos and not really understand the curriculum from the level one because they never had a chance to really see it in action or know how it's applied or actually know what a wind slab looks like or know exactly which tools to use in which situation. And it's a lot of variability in the students because every course has different weather, different instructor, different people put weight on different things. And so I wanted to create sort of a place for those students to come in the middle of their avalanche education to just get a lot of application and context, to have them put all of that information they received to real-time situations and actually gain experience, as you're saying, in the terrain, practice making decisions, understand how it all comes together before they just keep loading their plate with more information.
Nice. Yeah. No, I think. I mean, just like uh, you teach rock climbing has a lot of formal classes, but then I probably both you and I can see there's some gap uh, between those formal classes, right? Because you have to map those to the real experience and know how to improvise. Yeah, and
Mhm.
then I think that's what mentorship is valuable for people, right? So you're talking about your business is focusing on mentorship. So is that something that you have? Okay. And what's your course design like? If your mentorship program, right? So it's not. It can be quite formal because you have to leave room for um, making decisions, right? There's a lot of right at the moment decisions. I'm very curious about how you design your program.
Yeah, I think uh, it is very organic and intentionally so. There is a lot of space to pivot to what the students are asking about if they have questions and what the conditions are for the day. Really, I just try and make each group consistent in their skill level, their writing ability, so that it's not the writing ability that holds us back from being able to ski the thing. It's the conditions and the decision to ski or not ski this line. And so I think that element helps people with the application. But the way that the program is structured is um, it's just me. I'm one person doing every role in this business. So I decided that my cap for mentorship for a whole season is 12 people. That is like the most I can take on. And so I have three different groups. They meet on three separate days every 2 weeks, January through March. And there's four people in each group. So I have this year an intermediate group, an advanced group, and kind of advanced expert group. And I try to match people based on what their goals are and have this lengthy application process to try and get the group cohesion to a good level where I think there'll be good synergy. And then we just, I kind of front load them with a lot of information on how to interpret the forecast and review on their Area 1 curriculum, just kind of avalanche problem types and rescue stuff. And then everyone does their homework the night before and records what they think is going on from reading the forecast and observations. And we spend a lot of time kind of working through that, like what our expectation is for the day, what we know, what we what we don't know, the gaps in knowledge. And then we make a plan, go out and ski, all the while we're making sure that we're taking observations and kind of forming our decisions, not just going out to ski the thing. And as the season goes along further, I kind of take more of a backseat role. And depending on what the students, what kind of leadership they show, the more leash I can give them. But we set some ground rules of like, if you're entering new terrain or the snow changes, you need to stop and inform the group. And we kind of build these group culture things where everybody gets on board and it actually feels like a great way to learn in kind of a safe environment where we're really taking the time to put all of the things we have learned into practice. And it's really beautiful to see mostly people shine through in their confidence in what they know and what they're observing and their willingness to speak up. And I think it has something to do with the feedback that they get from the group, caring about what they have to say. And I think also, especially for women, because I mostly have women's programs, although it's not solely for women, but I think for women, especially having the consistent group and being able to build relationships and trust in the other people there, they're more willing to speak up and share what they really think instead of holding back or not wanting to say something wrong, etc. I really see people saying what they think and what they believe in, and it's a beautiful thing.
Nice. And then, so on your webpage, I read the thing. You say that holistic guided experiences grounded in reciprocal relationship with place. So right now, with the conversation with you just now, I can understand the holistic guided experience. But now I'm curious about this reciprocal relationship with place, and how should I interpret this?
Yeah, I think it's a way to operate, and I hope to have more and more in the future that really illustrates this reciprocity, because I think it's more than just the way that you travel. But I think right now, that reciprocal relationship just comes from really honoring and respecting the environment that we're in, and really appreciating like the opportunity to be there, and all that the weather brings, and just trying to bring some awareness to the place and the conversation that's alive in wild places. And I think part of that is listening when it becomes clear that we should turn around. Like if a storm is coming in and we're trying to go somewhere that's really exposed, to just take that warning and say, okay, we heard you. Like, thanks for the warning. We'll pivot and have a new plan. And I think that flexibility and that conversation, as I like to see it, is very alive in my groups. And I think there's always an opportunity to listen a little bit deeper. And I really appreciate the really big signs that I get, and also the little nudges that take the form, I guess, in me a little bit more like intuition. But yeah, it feels like an important piece to acknowledge. And I hope that as grounding truth continues to be in operation, that there's more ways that I find to give back to these landscapes, and yeah, to just really respect and honor them for the the great opportunity that they afford us to be there and recreate and have fun and learn.
And then you say that you started this business since 2021. So did you run a series of mentorship program in 2021 or not until next year? I mean, what I'm trying to guess, how long have you run this? How many seasons?
That's a great question. I have run the program itself for 3 seasons, but I have only run it through my business Grounding Truth for 2 seasons.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I also work for another company teaching avalanche courses in the Mount Baker area, and I was really excited about running this sort of mentorship program and thought that my boss would be into it as well. And I asked him if I could pilot this program. And so he pretty much ran it at cost.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had, I think it was 5 people and me. And it was only one group for 1 season. And we met once a month. And it was so awesome. And I wanted to grow it and do a bunch of different things with it, and eventually just asked my boss if I could take that program and make it my own. And he so kindly said, yes, you can do that. And so then it became a grounding truth mentorship program. But yeah, that's only happened, it'll happen this year, and it happened last year.
So you, so it's still very young. I'm just curious, like, so I'm assuming that since it's pretty young, so you're still at the experimental phase. So probably you will see a lot of feedback from running this program and get insight from them to improve for the later program. So what did you get, like something that you saw very good about it, and something you just like, oh, I probably want to improve upon on this.
Yeah, I think I'm always learning, trying to streamline. I get a lot of feedback with being the business organizer and the person that is answering all the questions and the guide and planning all the days, and so I definitely have a lot that I'm improving on the back end to just streamline the process. And so, reducing the time it takes me to send a bunch of emails is something that I've been working on. And some things I learned last year was that people wanted more help or time with rescue. And so this year, I decided to offer alumni and people signed up this year a rescue course that's it's not really like a rescue course as much as it is practice time with feedback. And in addition, we'll be being a rescue sled and dragging it around so they'll get some practice using that equipment. Um, Other feedback that I'm putting into practice this year is um, everyone came into the course with a little bit different level of understanding of like snow science and what's going on with avalanche problems. So I've built out a whole bunch more resources to help people get to the same level of understanding so that we can talk about it and somebody isn't going to get totally lost if we're talking about persistent weak layers or something and that vocabulary is just kind of wild and out there. I just want to give people as many opportunities to grow and progress in their understanding of what the snow is doing. And so building out those resources, I think will also cut down on the time of explaining those like more definition style things in the field so that we can again focus on the application more. And then the other big change this year is the program last year ran through April and we met once a month, except for we met twice in January. But this year, because the weather can get kind of rainy and wet in April, um, I feel like there's more interesting snowpack as well in the meat of the winter. So now we're meeting every 2 weeks, January through March. And I think that a little bit increase in the cadence is going to help people kind of stay on track and stay accountable to what we're doing. And it also might afford us some more interesting snowpack things and maybe better skiing conditions later in the season. So those are
Oh,
some of the bigger changes. Yeah.
yeah, you're talking about changes. What's the thing that remained the same for you? Just like, this is so good.
It's so good. I think the thing that keeps me going is that I just get to go skiing with really incredible people that are really engaged. And mentorship, is this reciprocal relationship. And people have to be willing to learn and give to the opportunity as much as I'm giving to it so that we can meet in the middle. And I've really found that to be true. I find that my students are taking every opportunity I give them to do more and to show me what they're learning and write a trip report, for example, or do their AM form like every day they go skiing. And that's just such a beautiful thing to like see that it's taking hold for them. And and then we get to go skiing. And then by the end of the season, I think this beautiful realization hit me um, with the last tours of the season, really, where as a guide, we're all always trying to read into if somebody's having a good time, are they cold, are they hungry, is there something going on that they're not saying that I need to help them advocate for? And by the end of the season, I felt pretty certain that everything that was going on had been spoken to or advocated for, and there was nothing left unsaid. And I think that brought about this sort of trust, this like very deep trust that we have between all of us after touring for a whole season that, yeah, like this is a safe space for me And if I feel like I'm bonking, I can just tell everyone to hold up and I need to eat a snack or whatever it may be. And I think both that like sense of a safe space and a sense of belonging for people and really the community that's been created around this is such a beautiful thing that is its own element of grounding truth. There's the community aspect is just way above and beyond what I ever could have imagined. Um, but then getting to go skiing as a guide and not just ski guiding, not just taking people skiing, but for them to eventually take me skiing and to know that I've helped them get there and for it to be this really collaborative experience where we also are talking about all the things going on and it's just so awesome. And I also see the forecasters in the area really appreciating the quality of observations getting reported too from people in the program, because that's also a big learning point and growing edge for people is how do I submit an observation and what the heck do I say? I don't want to be wrong and but I want to contribute and I think kind of helping people get over that hump of submitting their first observations really adds to our forecasting and also like the accuracy of supporting that people are using that information to plan their skiing and their tours.
Wow. Certainly, it's very nice and beautiful. And
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
I can feel that. I mean, as a guy that I'm also pretty proud to see my long-term students and strike on their own and uh, just be out there and confident doing their thing, right? So I can totally understand. It's just a beautiful thing, and um, and I'm curious because I've never considered myself a winter person. Look, I live in Las Vegas, so and I'm I mean, can you describe the beautiful winter just for me a little bit so I can imagine? Who knows? Maybe I'll pick up skiing again.
Mm, yeah, the winter. Well, if you pick a day where it's not crowded, I feel like that's when the beauty I seek is really there and just a blank canvas of snow. And there's this special way that snow insulates sound. So once you're out in it, it feels especially quiet, like quieter than quiet. And I love that sound. There's a little bit of a mutedness to it. And one of the most beautiful sights to me is I call it slow-mo pow when it's just lightly snowing and it looks like you're in a snow globe. And especially in the winter, those like low angle sunlight rays that come through the trees and you can see the little snow crystals and when the wind blows it makes them all sparkle and it can be really golden in color and there's some of the most beautiful skies just really kind of moody, sometimes lots of different sorts of clouds. And I love the aspect of really having to use your navigation sense. There's no trail in front of you. And as a guide, there's like a real art to setting the perfect skin track and making it so that it doesn't feel effortful and you use the terrain in a way that just sort of feels like you're riding a escalator or something if you're in the back. And there's also a beautiful effort braking trail in the front where you're really driving your knees to get through deep snow. But yeah, the quiet and also with this aspect of needing to pay attention to the snow and the environment to also really know what decisions to be making about what to ski. It it really puts me in tune with such an embodied sense of really noticing every shift in wind direction and the strength of the wind and where the sun is and what it feels like under my feet and under my poles. And I'm just so tuned to these small changes. And it feels like it's just such a special environment. And the way it makes me feel, I think, is why I keep going back. And I think too there's a intensity that I have in me that is maybe only mirrored in like these crazy windstorms and a whiteout where it just feels like I can be that intense person that is in me in those moments and like meet that intensity of the mountain and be steady for others. And there's also something really beautiful about that, of it being this crazy, like very unsettling, kind of windy, can't see anything, really cold. And just part of me loves that, to just find the calm in the storm and be with it. It's so just powerful and mighty and deserves so much respect. And I think it's in those moments too where I can just really feel small, small and very humble and uh,
Yeah.
having so much respect for the mountain.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. And so for your outlook, I'm assuming it look like you love it so much. You are going to keep doing it for I don't know for how long. And do you have like a vision of like how you want this to grow? And so potentially you might not even have to think about summer.
Yeah, well, you know, I think it's sort of this progression that feels like it's dreaming through me, and some things that are in that dream is that I would love to create an opportunity for another woman who's interested in becoming a ski guide or who is just starting out and looking for mentorship in a professional sense, um, to give somebody an apprenticeship position with my company to be able to come on these days out in the snow and get that mentorship as a co-guide. And I think that has the potential to grow into an employment position eventually. But I think with this mentorship program, I don't have big ambitions of it growing to be very big. Um, I think really just it's my flavor, and I would love for that to continue. And I think if someone really loved the program and wanted to pursue employment, like that would be a possibility in the future, but I think it will start slow. And then I'm also offering an alumni hut trip this winter, which will be a week in February, and people who have taken my mentorship program before. And I'd love to see some more things like that, like alumni experiences, hut trips, um, things that take people on an adventure and can expose them to different snowpacks and different places, potentially different cultures. And I think it really it feels like a beautiful place to strengthen the community and the bond that is already present in those people who've taken this program. And I think I'd like to foster that, and that seems like a good way. And I don't know if, something else would come about in the meantime as I head that way, but I'm open to it. I'm just,
Sure. I mean, because
yeah,
that's ultimately your principle, ground truth. You gotta see it. It's gonna happen at some point. And
yeah.
yeah, and so you talk very well about this mentorship that you're offering. I'm just curious, like, have you, like, your personal experience, I mean, throughout the way you have grown so far, you must have some great mentors, right? If you uh, really like to provide this to latecomers.
It's a good question. I have had really great mentors. Yeah, and I think, as I said, mentorship is this reciprocal relationship. And as a young person, really excited to learn about snow, I didn't really know how else to learn than to find somebody to teach me everything they knew. And when I was a ski patroller, I found that person. They didn't know it yet, but I knew they were the person to teach me. And I really was the squeaky wheel, I think. I asked them a million questions, and um, it became this really cool relationship where I had climbing background and was able to trade some climbing skills for avalanche knowledge. And that person really helped me, answered all my questions, gave me opportunities to watch them dig a pit and scribe for them, to go ski touring and have experiences I otherwise probably wouldn't have had. And it was so special. And I was able to grow because of that relationship. And the other side of that question is that mentorship is so hard to find. And it's something I desire, and I wish I had more mentors in my life right now. Um, and I think too, as a young female guide, I was constantly seeking out mentorship of women who were doing what I wanted to be doing. And there's not a lot of opportunity for that. And I couldn't really find what I was looking for because most of those women are out there doing the thing, and there's not a whole lot of time left over for mentorship. And so I sort of felt like, well, if that's what I wanted, somebody else wants that too. And of course, I had to sit with myself and figure out if I could actually be that to someone else. And we as humans have our like inner critics and all these things that tell us like, I don't know if you're ready. But I think I got to the point of saying, hey, I do have something to offer, and the time is now, so I'm gonna do it. And after starting this program, it doesn't feel like any question in my mind that it the time was ripe for it. And as I continue to learn and grow with it, it's great. I get mentored by my mentees. They have great questions and encourage me to learn. So we help each other, and yeah. So hopefully we can all find more mentors in our lives. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for providing your experience. I certainly think that, you know, we need more mentors, and then we can always be other people's mentors. It's just a beautiful relationship. And I would like to talk about your other endeavor. You said that um, the Traverse equipment, you were also part of their team. So,
Yeah,
what was that about? Since I'm not too in the ski tour and gear, so I might let you just speak for that.
sure. Yeah. A dear friend of mine, Charlie Lane, started Traverse Equipment a couple years ago, and he's someone that I used to work with at a different guiding gear shop, so we had a working relationship there. And then when he started Traverse, it was awesome because he builds this repair kit that kind of has everything that you need to do a repair in the field, for any ski related thing. There's also this really cool integrated tool for um, like with different bits for split boards and skis to help with like binding stuff. And as a guide, I often run into stuff like that where, oh, my, heel piece backed out and now my boot doesn't fit in my ski. And so having a repair kit on hand is really important as a guide. And before Traverse equipment, you had to build it yourself. And I feel like I would always ask other people who were have been guiding longer than me, what's in your repair kit? And try and build mine. But then once Charlie started this Traverse, it sort of took all the question out of it. And I definitely have added some things of my own to it, um, and picked some of the things out of his kit. But as far as the repair kit, it's pretty all inclusive. And he's doing a lot of good for the community by also educating people on how to use it. And I just feel tickled that he invited me to be a part of his research and development team. So it's still pretty new, and what that looks like is just using the gear and giving feedback and putting it to the test, taking it
Nice,
out in the field and seeing what works and what what kind of feedback we have for that gear.
nice, yeah. Um, I mean, it's always important for like real guys out there, like testing the products to give like real feedback. Um, let's see. Let me look at my notes. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So for people, well, this podcast, well, it probably won't publish until the spring, and so it's a little bit late to like advertise your winter program. But I'm just curious, like, typically your winter program, do people have to sign up right at the beginning of winter, or do they have to sign up? Can they sign up like in the middle of the winter?
So this is a good question. The last 2 years, I published the dates and the applications in July, and the program this year filled in September.
Nice. Yeah.
So it was actually quite a ways before the winter. And I'll probably continue to publish the dates that much in advance. And I guess each year it'll be dependent on when it fills. It's on a rolling basis for qualified applicants. But the season-long mentorship program isn't the only course I offer. I also am doing weekend mentorship opportunities, and those still have availability for this winter. So I imagine similarly next winter, people can sign up as the winter starts to come about. Maybe midwinter, there's still spots in some of the March offerings. Um, I'll probably continue to offer December rescue refreshers, and those are probably the sort of thing that you can sign up more last minute. And then in the spring, especially as I continue to pursue my ski guide cert, I have just the exam left. I really am hoping to offer more in the way of glaciated ski mountaineering around the Mount Baker area because I love doing that so much. So those programs will happen in the spring, kind of late spring, early summer, and that would be the sort of thing that people can sign up midwinter, like late winter, to get ready for that sort of thing.
I see. So for people who want to be tuned into the updates of your offerings, so probably they can check on the website, right? And then the Instagram, maybe subscribe to your moon cycle newsletter.
Yeah,
I mean, I
there's a
really like the
newsletter.
name Moon Cycle. Where did you get the idea?
Well, I felt like I don't like being spammed in my email inbox, so felt like okay, I'm gonna pick a like cycle that I will not go over. I won't post more newsletters than whatever it is. And then I felt like, oh, the moon cycle is pretty cool because it also would help inform people of like where we are in time and space. And, not everyone is so tuned to where the moon is in its cycle, but I think it's kind of a cool thing to bring awareness to. And I definitely don't send a newsletter every new and full moon. That would be crazy. But but I do hold myself to only sending a newsletter on the new or full moon. So
New or full moon? Okay,
it'll never be more than that.
nice. Um, yeah, and then it's actually could be surprised because it's not aligned with say the first and 15th of the month. It could be like a little bit different. So I think it's kind of interesting. Yeah, and
Yeah.
in the newsletter, I mean, you probably have course offering information and educational content. Is that I don't know what do you typically include in the newsletter?
Well, right now I think I've mostly been including updates. But then I also will post some creative writing. That's a hope that I hope to continue doing. I really like writing, so hope to make more space for the creative writing and a little bit of reporting of what's been going on in the newsletter. There's also usually links to a blog if I write a long thing about a season recap or talking about what does grounding truth mean or what is avalanche mentorship or how is the approach of grounding truth different. Any blog will be mentioned. Uh, and education is a cool piece. I think I'd love to include some more educational components to the newsletter. Uh, and there's always photos. I try to make it visually fun and just fun to look at. And even if you don't read anything, maybe get a glimpse of what's going on and what kind of skiing we've been doing. So yeah, it's nothing super long or super time intensive, but it just gives people a snapshot into what's happening and what's going on.
Nice. Yeah. I just realized I just jumped like right in once when we started Zoom call. I just start asking questions, and you're so easy to talk to. So, um, um, I always ask this question to all my podcast guests. So, um, the first question is right at this moment when I ask you this question, what would be the proudest moment that you recall?
In my life or in my business or
Well, something just pop out, so I don't set any
something. Okay.
category.
All right. Well, the moment that popped into my mind does have to do with grounding truth. And proud is is just, I think, one way to describe this moment. But just like feeling super uplifted and like, wow, this is it, was the feeling. And I was with a group of my mentees, and we had been skiing together, I think, four sessions before this, and we had made it all the way out to somewhere we had never been before. And we were transitioning to get ready to ski down this beautiful 3,500-foot ski descent. That was like the day to ski it. It was like everything aligned, and it's kind of a tricky one to nail it. So it was this really special moment. And as we were transitioning, someone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's International Women's Day." And we all just had this like celebration that we just wouldn't have rather been anywhere else. And that how special that all of us were there with these amazing women, and we were sharing this day and this moment and this adventure, and just the feeling of like, you know, these are my mentees, but they're also my friends, and we are having this really special experience, and it felt incredibly meaningful. And I think I was just maybe proud of myself for what I've been hard at work building, and that it could manifest in something as beautiful as that moment.
Nice. And what if people who listen to this episode could only take one thing away? What you wish them take away?
Hmm. That no dream is too crazy to dream, that you can do it, that what your idea is, even if it's not like something you've seen before, you can still do it. And if you believe in it and you put all your energy towards it, you just have no idea what it could turn into. And yeah, you just might get so surprised, and it's worth it. It's worth it to follow that feeling and that dream or that intuition.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. And one final question for you. Uh, how do you like to be called? Julian Ann or Juice or
Well, my parents named me Julianne, uh, and that's a fine name. You can call me Julianne or Jules. I I give
Jules?
the option to Jules because if it's blowing the wind and hard to hear, yelling Jules is a little bit easier than Julianne, 3 syllables. So either one is good.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. It has been a very beautiful conversations. I can't wait to see your mentorship program, your grounding truths keep growing
Mm,
the ideal way that you wanted to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ting Ting. Thank you so much.